Hello, I'm going to talk about the formal elements of the game Unravel as laid out in the Game Design Workshop by Tracy Fullerton. Unravel is a 2016 platform video game developed by Coldwood Interactive and published by Electronic Arts. In this framework, there are 8 formal elements of games to be considered: players, objectives, rules, procedures, resources, conflict, boundaries, and outcomes. Players. Unravel is rated E for everyone. Its gameplay is universal and will satisfy experienced players and welcoming to new game players. The main character seems to be targeted at a younger audience, but the theme is pitted more towards an older audience, but with nothing really disturbing for younger players. Players take the role of Yanni, a small anthropomorphized bundle of yarn that unravels the further it gets into a level. It's a single-player experience that pits the player against the game's obstacles. The player must find a way to bypass these obstacles in order to progress. Objectives. The main overall objectives of Unravel are exploration and solution. The player must explore each level to find the path to the end and all the objects hidden throughout the level. For the solution objective, there are many different kinds of puzzles hidden throughout Unravel for the player to solve. There are also mini objectives like chase, like when you get chased by the rodent through the tunnels on the mountain trek level. There are elements of race objectives when the player has to complete certain section or puzzle before the time runs out, such as part in the later level where you enter a car that's being crushed and have to figure out how to get out of it before the crusher destroys the car. There's also a rescue objective, as Yanni is rescuing memories from the wilderness. As you progress through the game, at the end of each level, the little knitted model represents the memories that Yanni has set out to rescue. Rules. For the most part, Unravel has the same rules as most 2D side-scrollers, but Yanni is always anchored to a certain point within the level or at the start of the level. So as the player moves around, they will unravel. The player can only move as far away from the yarn anchor point as the yarn will allow until they collect another bundle of yarn and are restored. There is no set amount of yarn you will get from each collection point. Each one has a different amount and allows the player to travel further. The player can only see how much yarn they have left by the state of Yanni. The further away Yanni gets from an anchor point, the skinnier and more raggedy the character becomes. The player can also manipulate some objects in the game world by grabbing them and pulling them, or walking into them and pushing them. These objects can be used to get over obstacles, or used as weights in the physics puzzles. The player can also use Yanni's yarn tail and lasso to reach higher areas. There are anchor points throughout each level that allow Yanni to either climb up or swing to higher platforms. Or they can use the yarn tail to climb up areas where they have already been if they fall down and can't progress any further without going back. The player can also die if they leave Yanni in the water too long, or certain animals will kill Yanni if they catch him. In the flying sections, hitting branches is forced to restart at the last checkpoint. Procedures. The rules tell the player what to do. The procedure dictated by that rule is the action that the players take. The player must use their yarn tail to help them solve puzzles and reach new areas. Tying the yarn tail between 2 points close enough to each other will form a bridge. The player can use the bridge to bounce, and bridges can also be used to push or pull objects to higher areas. The player can weigh down platforms and objects by jumping on them and then tie them down to anchor points or other objects to solve puzzles. There are also procedures to start levels. The house that the player starts in before the first level is a staging area that the player returns to after each level. When Yanni puts a new model onto the front of the scrapbook, the player must walk through this house staging area and find the picture frame to start the next level. Resources. The main resource in Unravel is the yarn that Yanni is made of. The player can't go any further until they collect more. The player starts out the level with Yanni being full. As they travel further into the level, Yanni starts to unravel. The more Yanni unravels, the slower he gets, and eventually he'll run out of room and won't be able to move any further. The player must then backtrack to find the bundle of yarn tied around the nail. Interacting with this will make Yanni pick up more yarn and become renewed. There are also knitted badges at the end of each level that are needed to complete the scrapbook that is the main focus of the game. There are collectible knitted coins in each level that unlock an icon on the picture frame that leads to that level also. These are hidden throughout each level and are optional for the player to collect. The pushable objects the player uses to reach higher areas and complete puzzles are also resources because there are a limited number of them. The player cannot go any further without using them. Conflict. There are 3 different types of conflict that games usually offer: obstacles, opponents, and dilemmas. Obstacles are used as the main conflict. The player must solve numerous puzzles to get through the game, by using their yarn tail and physical objects in the wall. Each level has a different kind of obstacle. Sometimes it will involve physically moving things around, other times it can be just figuring out which way to tie your yarn tail around different anchor points in order to be able to bounce up to higher areas that can lead you to the rest of the level. Unravel doesn't have many opponents. There are a few opponents that the player can face during Unravel. They are all AI opponents. Early on, the player will encounter crabs that they can't get too close to. If the player gets too close to them for too long, they'll be killed. However, you can hop on their head and use them as a stepping stone to get to new areas. Midway through the game, probably the most memorable opponent the player has, which is a rodent in the mountain track area. The rodent first blocks the player from getting a boat, but the player can use the puff mushrooms in the area to make the rodent back off just enough so that they can get the boat. Later, the rodent chases the player through the underground area. This is probably the most aggressive an opponent gets in the game. Towards the end of the game, the player aggravates some crows that will try to fly in and pick up Yanni. However, you can dodge it by hopping behind different objects. As for dilemmas or choice-based conflict, the game doesn't really offer much in this area. I suppose the main choice in the game is whether you want to find the hidden secrets or not. Boundaries. Unravel exhibits most of the same boundaries as all 2D platformers, such as gravity and the ability to jump through a platform from below, pass through it, and then land on it from above. There are also boundaries like water hazards. Yanni can enter water for a short time, but will die after just a few seconds if the player doesn't get out in time. During certain parts of certain levels, the top and bottom of the screen become boundaries when Yanni is attached to a kite. If you leave either the top or the bottom of the screen, it will result in a reset to the last continue point. Yanni's yarn tail exhibits another sort of boundary in the game. You can't proceed without renewing it, so eventually you'll come to a point where you can't pass any further into the level, with Yanni straining to pull on his yarn tail as he runs up. You'll have to travel back further into the level to find a bundle of yarn. This is an interesting type of boundary as it can change depending on whether you found the yarn or not. The real world physical boundaries of the game are much the same as many other games. You have to play it with a screen on either a console or a PC. That means it will have to be played in a room somewhere, unless of course you use the PS4's remote play feature with the Vita, then you can play the game on the go. Outcomes. The game reaches its conclusion when the player picks up the final knitted model for the scrapbook. Once the scrapbook is complete, the story is finished, and the end movie plays. The player can choose to play again, or play on afterwards with all the levels unlocked, to try and complete levels without dying, and also to collect whatever collectibles they haven't gotten, so that they can unlock achievements or trophies in the game. This was my analysis of the formal elements in the game Unravel. Thanks for listening.